for lesson 13. What is a regular verb and what is an irregular verb? A regular verb adds ed to its present form to show action that happened in the past. A regular verb also adds ed when it's used with the helping verb has, have, or had. So you can see right here some examples of regular verbs. The Continental Army camped at Valley Forge. You can see the ed ending. General Washington had asked for supplies. Here it is with had and with the ed ending. His request had been ignored by the Congress. So here again, you see the ed ending, and it can either be just a verb like camped, or it can be with a helper verb such as had, as in had asked or had been ignored. So an irregular verb does not add ed in these situations. It changes in other ways. And what you should really do is memorize the spellings of irregular verbs. That's the only way to know how to spell them. So irregular verbs are, for example, instead of saying, if you say I throw the ball, you wouldn't say I already throwed it. You would say I already threw it, right? So here are some other examples of irregular verbs. The soldiers wore thin, ragged clothes. So we don't say they weared thin clothes, we say they wore. They had eaten almost all the food. So we didn't say eated, we say had eaten, or we say ate. The soldiers' toes had been frozen by the frigid weather. So we're going to identify each verb here as a regular verb or an irregular verb. So I'm actually going to have to stop presentation mode so we can write on this. So Molly Pitcher nursed the sick at Valley Forge. So the action word is nursed. And we're going to decide with this word nursed, is it a past tense verb that's regular or is it irregular? So the way I know is I look for the ed ending. If it has ed, it's a regular verb. So that is a regular verb. She brought the troops water during a battle. So brought is the action verb. And let's look. Does brought have an ed ending? If not, it's an irregular verb. Yep, it's irregular. Because if it was a regular verb, it would have ed, and it doesn't. One American soldier had been wounded by a musket ball. So had been wounded. It has an ed ending, so I'm thinking that is a regular verb. Wounded or had been wounded is the verb phrase there. So that is a regular past tense verb. Molly Pitcher won fame for her work with that soldier's cannon. So won is the verb, and let's see, does one have an ed at the end? No, it doesn't. So that is what's called irregular. Okay. So also, as part of this lesson, we're talking about vivid verbs. So when you write, make sure to use vivid verbs to communicate action precisely. So instead of just using a general word, you're using a more exciting verb or a more action-packed word so that you can communicate that action more precisely or more exactly. Vivid verbs help keep your writing interesting, and they make it easier for readers to picture what's happening. So part of what we are doing when we are painting a picture in the reader's mind, sometimes we might use a simile or a metaphor. Sometimes we're just using a vivid verb to paint a picture, or some more describing words, some really vivid adjectives. So here's an example of a vague verb versus a vivid verb. Vague is another word that means unclear. So Molly went back to the battlefield with her pitcher of water. Went is kind of a vague verb because we know it denotes that she went somewhere, but we don't know if she walked, if she ran, if she went in a car, how she got there. It's just very vague. But right here, Molly raced back to the battlefield with her pitcher of water. So we still don't know. I'm assuming she was on foot. She might have had a horse. It doesn't tell us, but it does tell us about her speed. If she raced back, she went very quickly. And there's a lot more action that you can imagine in the second sentence than there is in the first.